Today I'm going to attempt to beat the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion using only the Staff of Wabbajack. So that means no weapons, no armor, no magic, no potions, no nothing, just Wabbajack. So if you're unfamiliar with what Wabbajack actually is, it's a staff given to you by Sheogorath during his Daedric questline. The Shrine one anyway, not the, DLC that's basically as big as Cyrodiil itself one. So being that Sheogorath is indeed the Prince of Madness, his staff is equally ridiculous in that it turns the target into random creatures. So I'm recording this commentary as I do the challenge, as I want my initial reaction to be authentic, as I really don't know what's going to happen here. I can see some serious drawbacks, but I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So the rules are pretty straightforward. I can only use Wabbajack for combat, no other weapons, items, or magic. I'm allowed to use miscellaneous items such as lockpicks and torches, as they don't apply to combat. I won't be allowed to use any glitches, cheats, or exploits. I know Oblivion is a very glitch-heavy game. And apart from the initial console commanding Wabbajack into my inventory, I won't be using those either. So now that we're all clear on the rules, let's get started. So to start with, I'm going to be a Nord for their naturally heightened endurance. I'm not going to be using any combat skills, so it doesn't really matter what race I am, but the heightened endurance will definitely help. Also, I named my character Mcaren in memory of my late gerbil that recently passed away. 2023 has been absolutely brutal for my pets, however they have all lived to their expected lifespan, so I can't really say they haven't had a good long life. I'll probably include a picture of her somewhere hidden in the video. See if you can find her, let me know in the comments. So, initial reaction of Wabbajack. It only has 10 uses and 3000 charge. Ah, right, okay. This is actually going to be really hard then. So, the massive problem already is that at 3000 charge with 10 uses, that's 300 charge per use. Which, to be fair, would only really be one filled lesser soul gem per use. Except I can't use a soul trap spell, as that would include using something that isn't Wabbajack. So it looks like my only option then is going to be to use the vendors to recharge Wabbajack. Now, I can't exactly remember, but I'm pretty certain that the vendors charge 1 gold per point of charge to an item, so it's going to cost 3000 gold to recharge Wabbajack from empty. Now, I don't like to swear on this channel, but holy sh**, this is going to be brutal. So, I don't intend on going above level 2, so that means that any loot I find for resale will be pretty low level and therefore pretty low value. Also, I tried using Wabbajack on Uriel Septim as well as Boris, but it didn't work. I'm not really surprised since these are, main character NPCs. I did, however, use it on the first sewer rat I came across. So in terms of Oblivion power scaling, that's like turning a bunny rabbit into Godzilla, so probably not the best idea. But to be honest, anyone who's played Oblivion knows you can effectively just run through the sewers without really having to deal with anything. Sure, you will take damage, but my priority here was to pick up as much loot as possible and get out as fast as possible. Now obviously I can't heal, and I've taken quite significant damage from all the rats so far. Using the wait command is a viable option here, however you cannot do this while enemies are close by. Therefore, I had to sneak past the first goblin into the second room, set off this tripwire, which killed this goblin for me, at which point I was far enough away from enemies that I was able to heal. Then it's basically just a case of running past some more goblins. There will be lots of Wabbajack in this run, however, I'm not wasting it on the sewers. I chose the Atronach as my birth sign as I feel the 50% spell absorption will actually be very useful here, especially against Mcaren. The blades dealt with the rest of the enemies right up until Uriel Septim was finally assassinated. I tried using Wabbajack on the assassin after he took down Uriel, but it didn't work. Okay, really man? What is going on here? Again, I'm putting it down to important cog in the main story. I mean, I could look into this, but I really don't want to. If this doesn't work on humanoid characters, it's only going to add to the difficulty, but I want to discover that as and when it happens. I created a custom class, and since I'm using one of Sheogorath's weapons, I thought the Insanity class would be more than appropriate. I picked Speed and Endurance as my favourite skills, as I feel like they'll be the most useful to me. And my major skills are a mix of what I know I can level without getting involved in any form of combat, as well as things I can't accidentally use. After that, it's just a case of running to the exit and sunlit freedom. So the first thing that I had to do was go to the Imperial City to sell all the junk that I collected in the sewers. Okay, this is really getting concerning now. I tried Wabbajack on one of the merchants, but again it didn't work. And there are definitely humanoid characters that I have to kill in order to complete this run. Like everyone in the Mythic Degun Shrine, Mcaren, and the skeletal blades inside of Sankator, although they're skeletons, so I don't really know what's going to happen there. So my first task was to see Joffrey to deliver the Amulet of Kings. He told me that I had to go and find Uriel's heir, who was a priest in Kvatch. The first thing I did, however, was go and see how much it would cost to charge up Wabbajack, and it looks like I was right. It costs 1 septim per point of charge. So I was really excited about heading to Kvatch, because now I could really see what I could do with Wabbajack. I mean, of course, naturally, you can just let the guards take care of everything for you, but that's not what we're here for. I want to use this staff. Okay, so Wabbajack is essentially random, and it looks like I got a sheep this time, so that's really no good to me. So I'm going to save before major battles, because Wabbajack is so random. Okay, we got an ogre this time, and in some situations that is going to be useful. However, this time it just does seem to want to only attack me, so maybe not so much here. Okay, so for now I just had to ignore the enemies and head inside the first Oblivion Gate outside Kvatch. I wanted to keep the guard inside the gate alive for as long as possible, so turning the scamps into something weaker would definitely be beneficial. And we managed to turn one into a rat. That was really helpful. And if I can just keep this up, turning them into weaker things, I really should have a good chance of... Is that a Daedrith? Oh, Okay, let's just try again then. This time we get an ogre, and of course it very quickly kills the guard. Then I got a skeletal champion, which to be fair didn't go too bad, until I turned one of the other scamps into a troll, who immediately just smashed the guard. So it seems like if you turn scamps into non-Daedric creatures, they will indeed attack the denizens of Oblivion. However, they do seem to favour attacking me and my allies first. So I decided to leave the rest of the scamps and run to the next area where I could get into the Sigil Tower. I'd already taken significant damage by this point, and I had no way of healing right now as I had too many enemies around me, so I started casting Wabbajack to see what would happen. So after I got a troll, I then got an ogre, and then got killed. So to cut a long story short, I had several more attempts of messing about with Wabbajack, trying to get the creatures to attack the scamps for me. However, I just ended up getting killed every single time, so I decided to just try and run through the Oblivion Gate. And I was only just holding on when I got to the Sigil Key Keeper. I thought I might be able to just pickpocket the key from him, but then another Daedra snuck up behind me and killed me. Then something interesting happened. Once I reloaded, the Daedra behind me wasn't there anymore. Not only that, but the Daedra Sigil Key Keeper doesn't actually count as an enemy until you engage in combat, so I was able to use the wait command to heal. I then pickpocketed the Sigil Key and ran right through the tower up to the Sigil Stone. And then at long last, I finally had some luck with Wabbajack. I turned one of these scamps into a troll that actually turned round and took out the other Daedra in the room for me, at which point I was free to just grab the Sigil Stone. So with the Oblivion Gate closed, I used the guards to fight our way into the Kvatch Temple, where I picked up Martin and headed back to Waynon Priory. So I let the monks and Martin cut down the rest of the Mythic Dawn, except something interesting about this specific part of the game is that Joffrey can be killed, at which point it will tell you that you can no longer continue with the main storyline. So I thought it might be an interesting idea to try and use Wabbajack on him. However, this didn't work. This concludes my theory that Wabbajack does not work on humanoids. But would you like to know what Wabbajack does work on? My horse. Just my horse. It doesn't work on other horses for some reason, but this is really useful information. Effectively, this means that I could use Wabbajack out in the wilderness on my horse to turn him into something that would actually fight for me, because my horse counts as one of my allies. But let's not worry about that right now. Right now we have to try and recover the Amulet of Kings. So there's a little bit of legwork now that isn't really worth mentioning, so I'll just gloss over it quickly. Basically, we meet Boris, talk to Tarmina about ciphering the hidden messages in Mcaren commentaries, blackmail a wood elf, and trudge through the sewers. Now there is a little bit of combat within the sewers, but Boris takes care of all of it as it's essentially just mud crabs, rats and goblins. So the important part is meeting the sponsor. We can choose to either meet the sponsor ourselves or we can cover Boris. The biggest pain in this section is that Wabbajack will not work on them, so I'm going to have to rely on Boris to take care of the Mythic Dawn for me. Also, he can be killed here, so if Boris gets killed, there's pretty much no hope for me actually doing this. So for the first attempt, I'll try and meet the sponsor myself. And I gotta be honest here, I really don't see this working out too well, but if I attack him early enough, then the other two Mythic Dawn agents might not be out in time for Boris to take down Raven Cameron. Of course, he decides to just go off and fight his own battle and eventually inevitably gets killed. I already saw this coming. So this time I thought I'd try to let Boris meet the sponsor first. That way he can engage in combat with Raven quickly. To be honest, it's only Raven that I need dead because I need the Mythic Commentaries Volume 4 from him. So I tried a few more times, but on this next attempt I had Boris meet the sponsor first. When they engaged in combat, I tried to stand in front of Boris and block, hoping to shield him from any attacks from Raven Cameron. Eventually, Boris killed him and I took the Book of Commentaries Volume 4. Then I literally just ran out of the sewers through somebody's basement, picking one of the locks and just getting out of there. I left Boris to his fate. So now that I had the location of the Degun Shrine, I headed straight up. So from previous experience from this, I know it's really important to drop anything that you might need, as you're going to have to let Harrow take all of your possessions. Once he does this, I can just go back and pick up everything that I dropped. I also made sure to pickpocket the key to the Degun Shrine, as I know I won't be able to kill anyone or anything in here. So this would actually be my third attempt at doing this. I discovered it would actually be so much easier once I was in the Degun Shrine to just steal the Mysterium Xarxes and run out of there. Of course, it is quite maze-like and you're constantly under attack, so it is extremely difficult to do it this way. Lucky for me though, the Atronach Birth Sign shielded me from most spells coming my way, and I was able to escape the shrine. So I don't really think that the Spies in Bruma quest is going to be difficult because, as I've now discovered, I can turn my horse into more formidable creatures to kill the Spies for me. And I know the Spies are always at the Runestone just south of Cloud Ruler Temple, so all I really have to do is take my horse down here. However, it is going to depend on what Wabbajack turns my horse into. If I get a sheep, a deer, or a rat, then this isn't going to work. Okay, so we get a troll, that's really good. We should be able to take down one of the Spies with this for sure. Although, unfortunately, Wabbajack doesn't really last very long. I'm really surprised that the troll wasn't actually able to take down one of them. They're really hard hitting. But never mind, let's use it again. Okay, so getting a sheep is quite frustrating, especially when they could now easily kill him. So I've already used Wabbajack twice here. That's 2 very valuable charges and I haven't killed anything yet. The third use gets me a skeletal champion, which actually kills one of the Spies, finally. Then I missed altogether, wasting yet another charge before turning my horse into a goblin and finally taking down the final Spy. Okay, that was totally painless, wasn't it? Only 5 charges out of 10 used there. Fantastic. So after finding the plans of the Mythic Dawn, I decided to head back to Cloud Ruler Temple. And wait, no, that can't be Boris. How did he survive? Like, I literally just left him to die. I mean, don't get me wrong, he gave me some pretty cool training, but really surprised to see him. You know what? Good for you, man. Good for you. So upon returning to Martin, big surprise, he has yet another task for us. And he actually needs a Daedric artifact. Now, I do have Wabbajack, but obviously I need it to complete this challenge, so we're going to have to get Azura's Star instead. In order to do this, we have to be at least level 2, so I basically just power leveled my sneak skill in the Blade's compound. So this is probably going to be the only time that I actually level during this challenge, as it just makes enemies easier if you stay at a lower level. Now, I also need some glow dust. Unfortunately, at this level, I don't think I'll be able to find anywhere I can buy glow dust. However, I do know of a merchant that always has it on his property, so I steal it from him and then drop it somewhere I know I can pick it up later. Unfortunately, I have no gold because Harrow took it all from me, so I had to go to prison. But once I was out of prison, I just picked up the glow dust. This would be a fitting tribute for Azura. Also, I don't know when, but apparently my horse died, so I had to use the one from the Horse Armor DLC. Also, I was lacking the gold to actually recharge Wabbajack. So I decided to join the Mages Guild and steal all the alchemical equipment from them, and then sell it back to them for a huge profit. With all that done, I'd collected enough gold to fully recharge Wabbajack, at which point it was off to Degun Shrine. Now, typically this is one of the harder moments in the single item Oblivion challenges because the orc vampires are actually very tanky. So my plan of attack was actually to lure them outside, at which point I could use Wabbajack on my horse to turn it into something strong enough to kill the vampires for me. Now, this is extremely hit and miss because obviously the randomness of Wabbajack plus the creatures do whatever they want means that this is far from consistent. I managed to get a skeletal champion to attack one of the vampires. It didn't quite finish her off. I tried Wabbajack again, which turned my horse into an ogre, at which point I was able to take down the first vampire. Okay, so I think we can already see where this is going. It's going to take a very long time. The next two that I lured out of the cave already spent some time up at the Oblivion Gate attacking the scamps outside. They took down one of the vampires. I then gave chase back to my horse, turned my horse into an ogre, and then essentially blocked and waited for the ogre to kill the orcish vampire. Unfortunately, however, Wabbajack was now beginning to run out of charge. So in order to get some money together, I'd have to travel back to one of the Mages Guilds, collect all their alchemy equipment and sell it. I bought a few petty soul gems as I didn't quite have enough money to completely recharge my staff. This gave me a charge of 4 now. Then returning to the vampire's lair, I saved the game due to the randomness of Wabbajack to see what would happen next. Okay, so attempt number 1, I get a sheep, that's no good. And then I got a sheep again, and then I got a rat. Man, this is really not going well. Okay, let's try again. Okay, finally an ogre, something decent, and it doesn't quite kill the vampire. And now my horse is dead. So I finally get a troll that actually takes down the orcish vampire, but I think there's still one left. Unfortunately though, I was now completely out of charge, so I had to return to the Shrine of Nocturnal. The vampires followed me, and Nocturnal's followers actually finished off the last vampires. Man, that was a difficult one. Okay, so our next job is to close an Oblivion Gate just outside of Bruma to show the captain of the guard exactly how to do it. First off, I was going to need some more charge on Wabbajack, so I raided one of the Mages Guilds again and sold all the supplies back to them. I was able to buy a few petty soul gems, which actually seems to be cheaper than just getting somebody to recharge Wabbajack. Now the Bruma Oblivion Gate is nothing special as Captain Bird cannot actually be killed and he's an absolute unit, so I basically just let him deal with everything and showed him how to close the Oblivion Gate. There's really not much more to say about that. Sankator on the other hand, well, this is where things will get interesting. See, I know I can use Wabbajack on creatures, so I'm hoping that I can use it on ghosts. Okay, that is absolutely brilliant. You see, normally Sankator is extremely tedious because I can't really do anything, but now I know that I can turn ghosts into creatures, this is going to be pretty easy. The first blade is pretty easy to deal with as there's an arrow trap in the same area as him, so all I have to do really is lure him to it and block, holding him in place until the arrows kill him. So as for the warden, I thought, you know what, let's try Wabbajack, and it actually works. So if I could turn him into a rat or something weaker, that might work as well. Or I could turn one of the ghosts into an ogre and smash through him, which is actually what I did. And the second blade again, I turned a ghost into an ogre. Hey, you know what? This is going really well. Sanctuary is normally extremely difficult. Also, Valdemir's shield is going to sell for a pretty penny too. The next blade, I was able to turn a ghost into a Daedrith that smashed through him as well. I had a little bit of trouble with the last blade as I kept turning the ghosts into sheep and rats and goblins, things that wouldn't really help. Also, when I did get a decent creature, they just seemed to want to attack me, and my health was very low by this point. I actually did end up dying quite a few times here as well. Eventually, after many attempts, I finally got a Daedrith that took down the last blade, at which point I had to run away as quick as I could, because any hit from that Daedrith would have killed me. When I finally got into the room with the armor of Tiber Septim, I had to grab it quickly as I was still being chased by ghosts. I was unable to heal, so my plan was basically just get the hell out of there and try and fast travel back to a city where possible. As always, Martin has more tasks for me, but first I would have to prepare. I sold all of the magical equipment that I'd gained in Sanctuary and made a lot of money. With an adequate number of soul gems, my next target was Mcaren to get a Great Welkid Stone. Now, traditionally, Mcaren is an absolute maze. It's filled with enemies such as goblins, skeletons, and other creatures. Luckily though, they do actually attack each other for some reason. So it's basically just a case of run through it and try and find the Great Welkid Stone. Now, that's the easy part. Getting out is a lot more difficult. You see, as soon as you grab the Great Welkid Stone, the King of Mcaren will appear, along with some seriously overpowered zombies. And as if that weren't enough, it's really difficult just getting past them, as my acrobatics skill is very poor. But once you do, it's simply a case of just picking a lock and running for the exit. Altogether, Mcaren, not really that bad. So one of our final tasks was gaining access to Mccaren's paradise. Before this, however, I would have to gain a Great Sigil Stone. In order to do this, I'd have to enter the Great Gate outside of Bruma. Now, you are actually timed for this mission and therefore encouraged to just run through it as quickly as possible. Obviously, the biggest drawback here is I can't really heal, and fighting enemies is not worth my time. So it became a job of basically just trying to avoid everything that I could. I spent most of this gate with extremely low HP. I actually did find a blood fountain, but avoiding enemies was still a massive problem. And by the time I finally did get to the Sigil Stone room, I was so low on health that a few hits would kill me. Once I did grab the Sigil Stone, however, there was a few remaining Daedra that were left outside of the gate. I had to run away from them as there were no more soldiers left to help, only Martin. And with everything finally acquired, it was time to enter Paradise and try and claim back the Amulet of Kings. Now, Paradise is annoying because Mcaren does not shut up through this whole thing. To be honest, at this point I basically just killed the game audio and put some music on. Now, there are a few enemies within the Savage Garden that can be easily avoided. However, you do either have to fight or serve Kathratet. I chose to fight him as it's quicker. My plan was basically just to turn one of the enemies within the Savage Garden into a creature with Wabbajack and use that to kill Kathratet for me. Now, I have to apologise as it is quite difficult to see here because Kathratet has a sword that does fire damage, so you can't really see what's going on. Basically, I turned one of the Clanfears into a Daedrith, killed Kathratet, and got the Bands of the Chosen. Something that's really good about Paradise is you actually get a defector as an ally called Eldermill. He's part of the Mythic Dawn, but he wants to help you take down Mcaren. So long as you follow his plan, you can get through safely. Now, I genuinely felt more confident about Mcaren than any other time I've attempted an Oblivion challenge. This is because I know that Mcaren summons creatures that I can use Wabbajack on, turn them into something, and kill him. However, this is very luck dependent, as sometimes he summons a Flame Atronach and other times he summons a Daedra. Now, I can't use Wabbajack on the Daedra, so I would have to wait until he summons a Flame Atronach and then turn that into something that can fight him. However, it won't always do what I want it to. Sometimes it will attack me, and other times it will attack his children. But after many attempts and just the right amount of luck, I was finally able to take down Mcaren and reclaim the Amulet of Kings. After this, there's nothing else left to do but to travel to the Temple of the One. Now, Martin can be killed here, but so long as you just run past everything, he should follow you with enough health to survive this. I also tried using Wabbajack on Mccaren's Degun to see what would happen, but to no avail. So, all that was left to do was take Martin to the Temple of the One and beat the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion using only Wabbajack. So, I think this is like the 3rd or 4th Oblivion staff challenge that I've done. They just seem really fun to me. I don't know why, but I like using staffs that I wouldn't normally use. And before I go, I'd just like to mention that me and my wife are now co-hosting a brand new YouTube channel that we created together called The Rights. It's going to be a channel in which we play puzzle rooms, escape room games, and just have general married banter. If it is something that you guys are interested in, we would appreciate the support, and I will leave a link to that channel in the description below. Once again, I'd just like to thank you for watching today. Please like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Leave any comments if you do have any, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.